Hello, and thanks for joining the webinar. So let's just wait a minute for all the people to join. And yeah, while we are waiting, where are you actually watching this webinar from? I'm calling in from Zagreb, Croatia. So how about you? Where are you based? Just to see where this how far this webinar is heard. Let's see if this is okay. Let's see if there are any responses there. So where are you watching from while we are waiting for everyone else to join? Okay, I see a couple of people responding. So Stockholm, Luxembourg, Dublin, Ireland, Nepal, Pakistan, Hungary, South Africa, Canada. Okay, lots of people here. Wow, thank you. Belgium, Lithuania, New Jersey, USA. Okay, so this topic is interesting also for people in America. Great. Sweden, Luxembourg. Okay, great. So lots of people there. Great. Now, I think most of people have joined, so let me then start. So, welcome for this webinar today. So today's topic is what is DORA and how to comply with it. My name is Dejan Kosutic, and I'm the main DORA ISO 27001 and NIS2 expert at Advisera, a company that makes compliance easy to understand and simple to use. And this webinar today is streamed through YouTube and through LinkedIn, and it will last approximately 45 to 60 minutes, depending on the number of questions you may have. And by all means, please do send questions through chat, because the more questions you have, the better, the more interesting this webinar will be. So in any case, I'll try to make this webinar as interactive as possible. So in any case, please do ask questions. Very well. So let me move on to the next slide. Okay, I actually made a poll the other day and through LinkedIn, and found out actually that 75% of companies are still not yet compliant with DORA. Let me show you actually how this the result of this poll. So as you can see in the poll, something like 24% said that you're already compliant with DORA, whereas 10% are not compliant at all and are basically at the beginning, whereas something like 67%, so roughly 2/3, are basically somewhere along the way but not fully compliant. So it's interesting that, DORA is coming into effect rather soon, and still most of the companies are not compliant. So I think this kind of this is really important, for these people in financial organizations to realize that actually this deadline is pretty soon. Anyway, what I'll show in this webinar today is basically who needs to comply with DORA. Obviously, these are financial organizations, but also the IT companies, IT suppliers of these financial organizations. I also show the steps on how to comply with DORA. And basically this webinar today is made not only for financial organizations. There will be also useful stuff for IT companies that are again providing their services to financial organizations, because I'll show exactly what these IT companies need to comply with as well. Good. So let me move to one of my main points today, and this is that DORA as a regulation is actually the most prescriptive cybersecurity regulation by far. So if you compare it, let's say, to NIS2, right, the other regulation, or directive actually, which is concerning cybersecurity in critical infrastructure, NIS2 is nowhere close to being as prescriptive as DORA. And just in a couple of slides further, I'll show you some things directly from DORA, and I'll show you how actually detailed this text is, and what how actually precise these requirements with regards to cybersecurity are. What does this mean? This means that you actually have to prepare, I would say, pretty well if you want to be fully compliant. It's not going to be as easy as it might be with some other regulations. All right, so yeah, let me just present you the agenda. And by the way, let me know through chat which of these topics you find the most interesting. And this will give me an idea on, which topics I should focus on during the presentation. So I'll go through all of these agenda topics now, but please do let me know through chat which do you find the most interesting. So of course, first I'll go through a little bit of basics, DORA basics, and then I'll go through these which financial organizations need to comply, and what are some exceptions from these financial organizations that do not need to comply with DORA. Then I'll show you these 18 steps on how to comply with DORA as a financial organization. And then I'll switch to the topic of IT suppliers for financial organizations, and actually which of these IT suppliers need to comply with DORA as well. And finally, I'll end with the comparison of ISO 27001 and DORA, and just to present if this standard can be useful for complying with DORA. At the end, I also have this Q&A session. And of course, you can ask your questions, during my presentation. I'll try to answer them during the presentation. If there are some questions left open, then I'll answer them in the Q&A session. So let me see if there's some feedback regarding what would you prefer as topics. I see a lot of other people telling where they're coming from. So Romania, Canada, Cameroon, Italy, Istanbul, Belgrade, India, France, Malta, Brazil, Slovakia, Portugal. Okay, great. So lots of people from all over the world, and actually lots of people from outside of Europe. Since this is primarily, I would say, European topic, but still, I'm happy that lots of people outside of Europe are listening to this. Anyway, so Mika is saying that he's interested in basics and the steps to comply. Mahruk says mapping of ISO to DORA. Paolo, steps to comply using 27000 for DORA. ICT suppliers which need to comply. What are the critical ICT suppliers? Yes, I'll actually cover this topic as well. So what are the critical suppliers? How do they actually become critical, and so what are the specific requirements for them? Okay, steps to comply. Okay, very well. So it seems that you're all interested basically in all of these topics, and of course I'll cover all of them. Good. Now let me move on with the presentation, and let's go for these basics of DORA. So DORA is a regulation published in 2022, and it's valid from January 2025. So in roughly, I would say, 3 months from now. And when you and it's of course it's focused on financial organizations. So it basically focuses on building the cybersecurity resilience and supply chain security for financial organizations. But as you'll see later on, it also has some let's say sections, some articles that apply to IT suppliers. Now let me show you, I'll now share my screen and show you what the most important requirements from DORA are. Let me just open the second one. Okay, so I'm showing you now the full text of DORA. And it has something like 60 or something articles, and they're based in 9 chapters. Now out of these 9 chapters, what is the most interesting are these chapter 2 about ICT risk management. Then chapter 3 related to incident management, classification and reporting. Chapter 4 digital operational resilience testing. This is basically about testing of resilience, and you can consider this also as a kind of a business continuity testing. And then managing ICT third-party risk. So this is basically how to handle suppliers. And when I open any of these sections, you will see the articles which are part of it. So let me So for example, let me go to Article 5, and then you'll see the governance or organization. So as you can see, it's very detailed, it's very precise. So the management body of the financial entity share, define, approve, oversee, responsible for the arrangements related to ICT security risk management frameworks. And then it's listed very clearly what actually the management needs to do. So again, all the articles are like this. Everything is pretty much precise. Now we'll send you now the link to this full text of DORA, and actually you will be able to open this yourself. Okay, let me just see where the link is. Yeah, okay, it's here. Now, if you are if you have joined this webinar through YouTube, you will be able to click these links without any problems. If you're joining this webinar through LinkedIn, then unfortunately these links that we are sending now through during the webinar are not clickable because of some the limitation in LinkedIn. Anyway, you can actually work around this limitation by simply copying this URL and then pasting it into your browser, and then this link will open without any problems. And what we will also do is that after the webinar, we'll republish we'll publish these links again on LinkedIn page where you actually registered for this webinar, and you will be able to actually get these clickable versions of these links later on. But anyway, if you want to open any of these links now, simply copy them and paste them into your browser if you're joining this through LinkedIn. Okay, so the point here being is that when you actually need to comply with DORA, you will need to comply with primarily these 4 chapters. So chapter 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. 2, 3, 4, and 5. These are the most important chapters that you have to comply. Now, going back to my presentation. Now, besides DORA, there are also these commission delegated regulations. So what are these? These are basically, I would say, somehow appendices to DORA. And there you actually have more detailed rules on what you have to comply with. Because even though DORA is pretty specific, it doesn't actually go into all the details that are needed. Let's say network security. Okay, network security is actually even more specified in these commission delegated regulations, which are a kind of an appendix to DORA. By the way, these commission delegated regulations are published by EU Commission, and this is why they're called these commission delegated regulations. And there, again, they describe in further detail what you have to comply with DORA. I'll show you now how these, where you can actually find these CDRs. So let me just switch back. You can find them on this page on Advisera website. It's called DORA, where to start, and so you'll get the link also now to this page. And when you scroll down in this page, on the bottom of this page, you will see the official text of full DORA regulation, but also of these other CDRs. Now, up until now, there are 5 actually published CDRs. One is around ICT third-party service providers, basically the criteria for designating IT providers as critical. The second one is around classification of ICT related incidents. The third one is around technical standards for contractual obligations. So this is actually related when you handle suppliers. And the fourth one, actually the most detailed one, is around these technical standards for ICT risk management tools, methods, and so on. I'll open this one just for you to see. So you will see articles around, asset management procedure, encryption, cryptographic key management, logging, data security, and okay, all these kind of things, more technical, are in this CDR called 1774. Okay. Good. Now, going back to my presentation, what is also important to know about DORA is that there is no transposition to laws in EU countries, which means that DORA is directly applicable to basically any financial organization within European Union. and the local laws and regulations don't have to do anything. Unlike NIS2, which must be transposed, meaning that local EU countries have to bring their own cybersecurity laws and regulations based on NIS2. There is no such concept here in DORA. DORA directly applies. And in that regards, DORA is actually the same as GDPR. If you follow GDPR, GDPR is a European act, European law, and it applies directly to any company that processes personal data. The same concept actually applies here for DORA. Now, moving on to the next slide, which financial organizations need to comply? Almost the whole financial sector in the European Union, like banks, insurance companies, investment firms, all of them. And, you can simply open this full text of DORA, and you can actually find anyone who needs to comply. There is also an article on our website where you can find this in a little bit more detail. So I'll switch now the screen, and my colleague will also send you now the link to this article. Okay, you can see this link as well. So here, you can actually see, all the list of everyone that needs to be compliant. So you can actually see here. So it's pretty extensive, and actually it goes a little bit beyond financial institutions. There are also, let's say, data reporting service providers. Credit rating agencies, administrators of critical benchmarks. All of these kind of not really financial institutions, but that are part of, let's say, financial system. They're also included here. Okay, now what is actually there are some exceptions on who does not need to comply, and this is basically the let's say leasing companies, so they don't have to comply. But also who doesn't need to comply are, let's say, smaller insurance companies or insurance organizations. So let's say I think smaller than 5 million euro in revenue, something like this. Also some special organizations according to decisions of EU member states. So let's say export banks or let's say local smaller savings banks. All these kind of financial organizations could be excluded if they're actually if this is allowed by member states, by the countries in Europe. So they're actually defining these kind of exclusions. Now, what is very important to understand about DORA is that it doesn't actually apply equally to all of these financial organizations in scope. Actually, there are three, I would say, different levels of compliance within DORA. One is for, I would say, quote, normal financial entities, although this terminology of normal is not present in DORA. This is my interpretation. So I would say majority of these financial organizations would be under these normal. Now, small financial entities, I'll explain what they are. For those small financial entities, you actually have to apply this so-called simplified ICT framework, ICT risk management framework. So basically, the DORA recognizes that all these detailed rules are probably not applicable to each and every organization, financial organization, and therefore it allows actually an organization to go for this simplified version of DORA, which, as you will see, is specified in Article 16. But this is actually, let's say, eligible only for these smaller financial entities. Not only this, you have also the classification of micro enterprises or micro financial entities, which also have some exceptions, and they do not have to comply fully with what is written in DORA. So it's kind of, let's say, not easy to read DORA because first of all it's pretty extensive. Second, you have to watch for these differences between these, I would say, regular normal financial entities and also from these small and micro. Now, actually, let me show you another article which I published and which distinguishes between these three differences. So let me switch back to this screen. And you can actually see this article. It's called List of Documents Required by DORA Regulation, and so you'll get the link in this in the chat now. Now, how does this help you with this distinguishing? When you scroll down, you actually see the list of all the documents, all the requirements within DORA, and who needs to comply with them and which kind of documents do you need. And you can actually see that, for example, set clear roles and responsibilities for all ICT related functions. This is specified in Article 5, paragraph 2. So when I click it, you will actually see that this is listed here, okay? So basically, whenever you have a requirement, you actually have the link and you can see the details here. Now, this is applicable to all organizations except these smaller organizations. And these smaller organizations are, if you remember, they have to comply with these simplified rules for ICT risk management. Now, if I scroll down, you will see that there are many of these. I'll click show all. There are more than 100 of these rows, just to warn you. So quite many of these things to comply with. Now you can see actually here all except smaller and micro enterprise. So there is a different, let's say, classification here for this particular requirement. When I click it, so it's 5 paragraph 3. Let's see what it says. So this is the one, and it says financial organizations other than micro enterprises, okay, shall establish blah blah blah. So basically there is a certain requirement which applies to everyone except micro enterprises and also except smaller. So the point being here is that you have to watch closely, what particular requirements are relevant for. If I go, I'll just browse a little bit faster now, just to reach this Article 16, which specifies this simplified risk management. Okay, it's a little bit down. Well, many requirements. Okay, anyway. Okay, this is Article 14, now this is Article 16. And you can see actually that this applies only to smaller organizations. Why? Because this is this simplified risk management. So let me open it. As you can see, Article 16, simplified risk management. And then it basically specifies what who is actually part of this exemptions and which kind of smaller organizations can actually go for this simplified risk management. So as you can see, it's pretty interesting to figure this out and to read and understand all these differences, and I definitely wanted to show you this so that you know how to read DORA. Okay, very well. Good. Let me move on. Okay, now let's see what are the compliance steps if you are financial organizations, and basically you have to actually go through these steps to make sure that you didn't forget about something. It doesn't really matter if you are a normal or small or micro organization, you still have to go through all of these 18 steps. Now, the first step really for compliance is that you perform this gap analysis and see how far are you with all of these 100 plus requirements from DORA, because of course you don't want to repeat the implementation of certain requirements if you're already compliant. So you have to do this gap analysis first and then find out what exactly is missing that you have to do throughout your through the remaining of 17 steps. The next is obtain management support. So in most cases, senior management of financial organizations is sensitive towards this kind of projects. Sometimes it's not. So you just simply want to kind of make sure that everyone is on the same page, and that you really want to, complete this project in I would say, quick as possible and way, and that you do have the priority when it comes to resources. And then you have to set up a project management. Typically you would have a project manager, a project sponsor, project team, these kind of things which are important for this kind of complex project. And then you should perform some initial training, because there are many things that are changing when it comes to cybersecurity, and it's always good to have at least your project team and the senior management initially trained, so that they know what to expect when it comes to this new regulation. Okay, the next one is to set up this governance and senior management, governance, cybersecurity governance and roles of the senior management. And this is something that is needed at the very early phase in the project, so that what are kind of, let's say, some basic rules on how to handle, how to manage cybersecurity. And yeah, what I forgot is that you can actually see all these steps in more detail in an article which lists all of these 18 steps, and now you'll get the link to these 18 steps, so that you can to this article, and you will see you can actually read this in more detail a little bit later on. Okay, the next step is to set up this risk management framework, so to set the rules on how you will handle security. So basically, not only for the risk assessment and treatment, but also how to handle all of these policies and procedures, and simply to set up the whole system or the beginning of your risk management system. And then you have to do this, identifying all the assets, and then risk assessment, do the risk assessment and do risk treatment. And you will also have to do this digital operational resilience strategy. This is a kind of a new concept. And basically this means that you will have to create a very elaborate implementation plan for all of these, I would say, rules and all these policies and procedures, all these technical technologies that you will be using, and so on. So DORA requires you to create this very detailed implementation plan together with objectives and so on. And this is called digital operational resilience strategy. Okay, the next step is to start implementing all cybersecurity controls or cybersecurity measures, and also implement resilience measures. And basically this comes down to business continuity. If you come from this ISO world, then this resilience would be ISO 22301, cybersecurity would be ISO 27001. Okay, the next step is to start setting up the system of how to deal with supply chain security, in particular the security of these ICT third-party service providers. Now, ICT as a term means information and communication technology. Of course, normally we're using the term IT providers, but this basically comes down to the same thing. So anyway, if you're an IT company providing, if the financial organization has IT companies providing them services, which all of them have, then they have to manage this risk and have to manage this relationship with these ICT suppliers. One of the requirements is also to set up this regular cybersecurity training, and interestingly, this is not only for the employees of the financial organizations. This is also for the ICT suppliers. So you have to actually create these training and awareness programs for both internally and externally. And there is an article which describes this, yeah, you'll get now the link on the article called How to Organize Training and Awareness According to DORA. You can see it also in chat. Anyway, so you can read in more detail, which kind of topics you need to cover. Good. Now, the next step is really to set up this incident and threat reporting. Obviously very important. The whole chapter in DORA covers this. Then you have to set up this regular resilience testing. This is also something that is mandatory. And if you can draw a parallel to ISO standards, this would be exercising and testing in ISO 22301, the business continuity standard. Then you need to set up this measurement, monitoring, and reviews. I would say lots of them. This is also very strictly predefined, and this is something that, of course, you need to, I would say, stay on top of everything that is happening with your IT systems. You have to perform internal audits. This is basically nothing new, but it's pretty much specified in DORA. You have to do this management review. Again, nothing new, but something that must be performed. And you also have to do these follow-up actions and corrective measures. So this is also something that has to be done. So basically, follow-up actions and corrective measures. This is, the where we actually when you notice any non-conformities, you have to close them, I would say, in the most efficient way and by eliminating the root cause of these problems. Okay, so these are the 18 steps, and now you'll get also the link to this white paper called Comprehensive Guide to the DORA Regulation. You can see it now in chat. And basically this is a white paper which kind of summarizes most important things from all the articles we have on DORA on the website. So if you want to have, let's say, one PDF document where you have all of these things together, then you can sign up and download this free white paper. Good. Now let me see if there are any questions coming in. So let me just scroll back to see. Okay, there is a question from one LinkedIn user. Can financial institution also be ICT third-party provider, or are they an exception? So, I mean, yes, first of all, you could have, let's say, financial organizations can have their own, let's say, daughter companies for providing ICT services. And these daughter companies can provide the services to them as a mother company, but also to other, let's say, financial institutions. This is, let's say, more often the case. Now, can the financial institution actually be a direct third-party provider? I'm not sure. That there are probably some cases, but in case they are, then they will also be considered as ICT third-party supplier. Okay, let me see if there are any other questions coming in. A question from Akos. Do we get the slides after the presentation? Yes, so I'll explain you at the end of the webinar how you actually get to these slides. Okay, good. Now, let me move on with the presentation. Good. Now, let's discuss the IT companies and what, which actually IT companies need to comply with DORA. First of all, the DORA specifies or clarifies that these ICT suppliers is basically any company providing digital and data services through ICT systems, okay, to financial entities, obviously. So this will be, like software developers, SaaS providers, managed service providers, even actually, when you actually read this article 3 about these basically rules, then you see actually also the companies that are providing hardware services on a regular basis, they also have to be compliant with DORA. So actually this goes pretty far. Now, when you read this carefully, you actually see that also telecommunication companies have to be compliant with DORA. There is one exception that if telecom companies providing audio, only analog services, then this is not considered as, then these kind of companies do not need to comply with DORA. But since, most of these telecom providers are really providing digital communication services, they also have to be compliant with certain elements of DORA. So this is something that you have to keep in mind. And actually, I'll share the screen with another article on our website, which explains in more detail which companies need to comply. So let me just go here. Okay, it's called "Which IT Companies Need to Comply with DORA and How." Okay, first the article explains, what are these basic terms, and then it actually defines what exactly you need to be compliant with. And this is something that I'll explain now, but first we'll send you the link to this article where you can actually read more details. So it's already in chat. Good. Now let me go back to my presentation. So basically there, I would say three things in general, three things that all ICT suppliers must be compliant with. First of all, in Article 28, DORA says that these ICT suppliers must be compliant with security standards. It doesn't say which security standards, but I would say the logic of all these EU regulations goes, I would say, in two directions. First one is ISO 27001, being, I would say, the most popular, the biggest cybersecurity standard worldwide, and also this European cybersecurity certification scheme. Now, European cybersecurity certification scheme is not really mentioned in DORA. It's mentioned in, for example, NIS2, but it's actually becoming quite a big thing because this is run by ENISA, which is a European cybersecurity agency, and it's quite, I would say, pretty sure that there will be some requirements for at least some of these ICT suppliers to actually, that they need to be compliant with some of these, I would say, with some of these standards that will be published by ENISA under this European Cybersecurity Certification Scheme. Now, this certification scheme is in the very beginning. It didn't, I would say, take off yet, but I'm sure that we will see in the next couple of years this being more and more prominent, and this being more and more important. Okay, second thing that all ICT suppliers will have to be compliant with is contractual obligations. The DORA is very specific, and also the CDR, one CDR is, they're very specific on which kind of contractual obligations financial organizations need to impose on their ICT suppliers. So, it's a pretty long list of, I would say, a couple of, I would say, yeah, more than a dozen of various things that need to be included. So this is also something that you have to keep in mind if you are ICT supplier with the banks. And the third thing, as already mentioned, ICT suppliers will also have to go through awareness and training, and this could be organized by their buyers, these banks that they're selling their services to. So these are basically the I would say general obligations that are directly applicable in DORA to ICT suppliers. Now let me see, there are some questions coming in through chat. Jackie is saying, if an ICT supplier is based outside the EU and the financial institution is headquartered outside the EU but has parts of the business in the EU, DORA compliance required by the ICT supplier. Yes, so basically, if you have, let's say, I don't know, UK company, UK ICT supplier, and you have a US bank that has its own subsidiary in Europe, okay? And if this UK supplier is providing their services also to this local EU subsidiary, let's say in Germany, this means that this UK company also has to be compliant with DORA, even though that neither the bank nor the ICT supplier, they don't have the headquarters in European Union. This does not matter because they have, first of all, the financial organization in this case has a local subsidiary in, let's say, EU country, and the ICT suppliers providing their services to this local subsidiary. Okay, good. Now, so I would say this part of ICT suppliers is, I would say, pretty kind of expected. Okay, so it's normal that, that financial regulators want banks to have, I would say, control over their suppliers. However, DORA introduced another, let's say, level of compliance for IT suppliers, and this is called critical ICT service providers. Okay. Now, first of all, these are critical ICT service providers. Actually, let me go through this a little bit. So this is Article 31, but it's also written in this article about. So basically, according to this Article 31, a critical ICT service provider is basically, the one that actually kind of goes that follows this criteria. And when you read these criteria closely, it's, these critical ICT suppliers are all the ones that actually could become a kind of a single point of failure for the bank. I wouldn't say that definition, so to say, of critical of a single point of failure is completely right, but I just want to give you a kind of a taste of what actually these critical ICT suppliers are. Now, just to clarify, the DORA doesn't say anywhere, doesn't mention this concept of single point of failure when defining critical ICT supplier. So don't, hold me for the word here. I'm just trying to explain in simpler words what this could mean. So anyway, if you're, let's say, for example, if you are a sole provider of, let's say, if you're, let's say, a software developer upon which the bank completely depends on, then you're a critical ICT supplier. Okay, this is, let's say, one example. Now, going back to my presentation, what is interesting is that actually banks themselves are not determining who is a critical ICT supplier. This is actually determined by European supervisory authorities. So there are three of them, the Banking Supervisory Authority, Pension Scheme Supervisory Authority, and insurance, the regulator for financial markets. So basically these three are actually determining who is ICT service, critical ICT service provider, and the further guideline for determining these things is written in this Commission Delegated Regulation number 1502 from 2024. You can also find this on our website. So it's interesting actually that this kind of decisions are made by the regulatory agencies, not by the banks themselves. Now, what is even more interesting is that these critical ICT suppliers are supervised not only by the banks, but also by this so-called lead overseer. Okay, and this lead overseer is basically, again, an entity. Typically, this will be again, the government agency, which will supervise the critical ICT service provider. So in effect, the financial regulators, financial supervisors will not only supervise the financial sector, they will also supervise directly these critical ICT suppliers. And it's and they actually go pretty far in these regulations. Also, the fee is actually specified for these supervisions. So I think the minimum fee is something like €50,000. I'm not sure about the exact amount, but basically this lead overseer will invoice their supervision services towards these critical ICT service providers. And of course, they will have the access to all the data, to all the systems. These critical ICT service providers will need to send them reports, etc., etc. So it's like very, very kind of serious system is defined for this supervision. On top of this, for critical ICT service providers, there are additional contractual obligations. So there are, let's say, basic contractual obligations for all ICT providers, but then there are additional contractual obligations which are specified in DORA for these critical ICT suppliers. Also, DORA is very specific on what happens if a critical ICT supplier is based outside of European Union, and how this kind of situation is handled. So basically what similar to what the question was in a couple of minutes ago. And there are also very concrete fines and penalties for critical ICT suppliers that are not compliant with DORA, and basically with any decisions taken taken by this lead overseer. So this is a serious story. If you are an ICT service provider, critical ICT service provider, this means that you're probably making good money with your with your buyers. I mean, banks, insurance companies, and so on. But this also means lots of obligations according to DORA. Now let me see if there are some questions coming in. Okay, a LinkedIn user is asking, in the 2024-1774, so CDR, it does refer to standards, not specific ones, but refers to Article 2.1 regulation, so that is good news. Yeah, okay, but again, DORA nor the CDRs are not mentioning 27001, unfortunately. But you know, this is how it is, and it doesn't really mention these European cybersecurity scheme. But again, I think this is something that will be pretty much a future of this kind of standardization. Okay, also a question, who decides that an ICT supplier is critical? Okay, as I explained, this is determined by European supervisory authorities. Very well, now let me go to this last part of the presentation about mapping of 27001 and DORA. As I mentioned before, DORA and these CDRs are much more prescriptive than NIS2. It's really very, very different thing. And in most articles, DORA is actually more detailed than ISO 27001. So, you know, when you read 27001 and when you read DORA, it's, you know, it's the DORA, especially with its CDRs, is much more detailed than 27001. And as already mentioned, DORA does not mention 27001. So what does this mean? If you are a financial organization, can you then use ISO 27001 as a guideline? Well, I would say for details, the answer is probably no. Because again, details, there are more details in DORA and CDRs than there are in 27001. However, to get, I would say, a high-level picture or high-level framework for managing security, now this is where actually a financial organization can use 27001 for. Let me show this in the next slide. What I think is, I would say, very usable in 27001 when it comes to DORA is this concept of PDCA cycle. So this PDCA cycle basically means the plan, do, check, and act, meaning that first you have to plan something if you want to implement it, then you actually go and do. This is the second phase, implemented. And then you have this check phase where you actually are monitoring, reviewing things, doing the audits and so on. And then you have the A, which stands for act phase, when you're actually correcting things. So this cycle of continuous improvement is something that actually helps you, I would say, understand better, you know, how to organize this whole thing around DORA. And this is where I see the biggest value of 27001. Not in details, but I would say in a kind of systematic approach, or let's say a overall framework for handling overall security. And you know, when you break this down into clauses, you will see that you know, in plan phase, these are clauses 4 to 7 in 27001, and you have these DORA articles 5, 6, and 8, you know, which are basically the planning phase. And then you have the do phase, the implementation. In 27001, this is the operation, clause 8 operation, and of course all the Annex A security controls. In DORA, these are various articles and chapters when it comes to implementation, of course, a majority of them. And then when you speak about check and act phases, this is clause 9 and clause 10, whereas in DORA, this is article 13 around learning and evolving. So it's a bit simplified, of course. It doesn't show the whole picture, but I just wanted to kind of give you an idea in which direction this ISO 27001 can be used. Of course, this is the usage for financial organizations. If you are, again, ICT supplier, then you can directly apply ISO 27001 because, again, I repeat, each and every ICT supplier for financial organizations need to comply with security standards, and 27001 is probably the best choice for doing something like this. Okay, you'll get actually now the link to this article which explains the ISO 27001 implementation steps. So it's called ISO 27001 implementation guide checklist of steps, timing, and costs. So let me, you can see it in the chat now. What will be interesting actually if you read this article is that these steps for ISO 27001 implementation are very similar to the steps of implementation for DORA. Why? Because again, if you apply this PDCA logic for DORA, then it becomes actually very similar to 27001. Again, this is only for kind of a top level understanding and managing the major parts of DORA. Great. Now let me move on to the conclusion, and then I'll go for the Q&A session in a minute. So, you know, DORA will definitely be a challenge, not only for financial organizations, but also for their ICT suppliers. But, you know, if you plan the whole thing properly, then it can be done, I would say, more easily than expected. And for that purpose, we are developing now this DORA documentation toolkit. This is a set of documents which will be which can be used for complying with everything that is written in DORA, and also this DORA company-wide training. So this is something that can be used actually to train your workforce, basically your whole workforce, but also your ICT suppliers. So these are the products that are upcoming. We will launch them probably in November. Basically, this is it. So let me now go for Q&A. Let me just switch the screen here. Okay, so I'll start answering your remaining questions now. Of course, feel free to ask any questions through chat, and I'll be glad, to answer any of your remaining questions. But before I actually start answering your questions, just a couple of notes. First of all, feel free to reach out to me directly and ask any question, and I'll give you now my email address. So you can use this email to send me any of your questions directly. You can also follow me on LinkedIn and YouTube. You'll find lots of useful posts on my LinkedIn profile, and on YouTube you'll find a series of videos around 27001 or so on NIS2. I still didn't publish these videos on DORA, but I will also in the next month or so I'll publish a series of videos on DORA as well on my YouTube channel. And yeah, you can see in chat also the links to my YouTube and LinkedIn profiles. Okay, good. Yeah, let me. Okay, the next thing I wanted to let you know is that my next webinar will be next week, again on Wednesday, and it will be on ISO 27001 risk assessment and treatment. And I'll explain, how to define the risk management methodology, how to match assets with threats and vulnerabilities, these kind of things. So basically, if you are interested in this risk management, you can actually sign up for this webinar. And yeah, now we'll get the link to this where you can actually sign up for my future webinars. Okay, yeah, you can see this here as well. Okay, good. Now let me see which questions came in so that I can answer them. So Bernard asks, what are the key milestones in DORA planning? So basically the key milestones are these 18 steps that as I explained. So if you go back in my presentation, and also if you open this article which we shared the link to, these are basically the 18 major milestones, 18 major steps that you need for DORA. Also earlier in the webinar we shared actually we didn't share, I think, this link, so we'll actually share now this link to this article which explains the 9 most important requirements of DORA. So you'll see this link in a couple of seconds in the chat now. Okay, question. Okay, by LinkedIn user, will we be publishing the toolkit for DORA? Yes, so certainly we will publish this in November. We didn't publish it earlier because it's, I would say, very, very difficult to develop. It's so many details that you have to take care of. There are these 4 CDRs. There is this very detailed text of DORA. So, integrating all of these things into a documentation set is quite difficult. It takes a lot of time. So this is why it's a little bit delayed. Okay, so yeah, you can see also these articles, this article which explains the most important requirements for DORA. So if you have any questions, I will be glad to answer them. So let me see if there is anything else coming in. Let me just browse through all the questions. Okay, I think I answered most of the questions that came in. Okay, good. If there are no other questions, then let me then wrap up the webinar. So we are also, okay, so I see now one question coming in. Can financial institution also be ICT third-party provider, or are there an exception? So as I mentioned earlier, so yes, financial institution can be also a third-party provider. So basically there are no exceptions. So any kind of organization that provides their services to other financial organizations is also an ICT provider. Very well. So let me wrap up the webinar. So just a few words before we finish. So as I mentioned, this 1 hour webinar was too short to go into details like each and every requirement of DORA, what are the controls and so on. And for that purpose, we will certainly organize other webinars like these. And we will publish the PDF presentation deck together with all the links from today's webinar. And if you signed up for this webinar through LinkedIn, you will see these links in a clickable format, but after the webinar. And actually, I'll show you where you can find them. So just give me a second. So if you actually, if you're on this webinar page where you joined, you will see them under the comments. So basically, if you go here under the comments, you will then see all these links in a clickable format. So please do come back, keep this page open and come back in, I would say, 5 or 10 minutes. And then you will see the links for this PDF presentation deck. And also you will see this all the links in clickable format, all the links that we shared during the webinar. Okay, finally, I'll send you now the link. We'll send you now the link to this short survey. So it's really short, only 3 questions, and I would really appreciate if you have time to open it and give me your feedback. And this would be all. Thank you very much for your participation, and I hope you have enjoyed this webinar. Have a nice day.